The first move made by Montreal on Monday's trade deadline has them nabbing one of the last remaining rental defensemen on the market. I'm Antonieta Collins, joined by ESPN NHL writer Scott Burnside and former NHL executive Frank Provenzano. Now, we have a lot of teams that needed defensive help. However, the Canadiens, they got Petry, they got Jeff Petry. What does he bring to the team now, Scott?
Well, GM Marc Bergevin continues to be something of a folk hero in Montreal. The way he's got the Canadiens back in cup contention, of course, going to an Eastern Conference final last year, and they're well positioned for another long playoff run. Jeff Petry, as you mentioned, one of the last defensemen on the rental market, true rental. He can become an unrestricted free agent in July. Right-handed shot, which made him ultra desirable. And for a Montreal team that is already first in the NHL in team defense, has a goaltender in Carey Price that will likely win a Vezina and maybe a Hart Trophy. Adding Jeff Petry is part of the depth plan. It's an old cliche, which I'm sure Frank has. You may have come up with it, but you can't have enough defense come playoff time. And I think Jeff Petry, again, is going to a Montreal team. High aspirations. They're the last Canadian team to win a Stanley Cup back in 1993, and there are some people who may believe they may end that streak this spring.
Very well. Now, Frank, what are your thoughts on the move, and what do the Oilers get in return?
Well, it's interesting, having been part of 17 NHL trade deadline war rooms, you know, the defensemen are typically the players that kind of have the highest price in this period of time, and this is a real dangerous time of year for most NHL teams because you're paying a really high premium for, in a lot of cases, trades that have, you know, marginal to medium level impact. I think, you know, the Petry trade was interesting in that Montreal, in my mind, only really gave up a second-round pick and a conditional fifth. I thought it would at least bring back, if they got a second-round pick, maybe a prospect. If you look at the comparison with Brett Connolly that the Tampa Bay traded to Boston, they got two second-round picks for that player for essentially a third or fourth-line winger with upside. Montreal's getting a defenseman who's playing 20 minutes a night, albeit on a weaker team, that they plop right into the lineup. So I think, you know, the interesting question for me is, does this now set the bar maybe a little lower than anticipated for the remaining rental defensemen, and how does that impact the rest of the 3 hours that we have in the deadline?
There you have it, what we need to know from ESPN's Scott Burnside and Frank Provenzano. For the latest moves happening right here on Monday's trade deadline, keep it locked on our NHL page on ESPN.com.